Iran has warned Israel of bitter consequences after the October 26 airstrikes on Iran. While Tehran insists Israel was unable to achieve any of its stated goals, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu emphasized Israel was able to achieve its desired goals. He insisted Israel hit Iran's air defense system and missile production capabilities hard. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei warned Israel of a bigger attack and said he will make Israel understand Iran's power. Iran also claimed that the United States was actively involved in that October 26 attack on Iran, and Iran's foreign ministry and the foreign minister said US allowed IDF fighter jets to enter US controlled airspace and gave Israel an air corridor to attack Iran. Listen in.
In the early morning hours of Saturday, we fulfilled our promise. The Air Force attacked throughout Iran. We hit hard Iran's defense capabilities and its ability to produce missiles that are aimed at us. The attack in Iran was precise and powerful and achieved all of its objectives.
America is fully behind the Zionist regime and is a partner in all its crimes. In the operation in the night before last night, just as the statement of the General Staff of the government declared, the participation of the Americans was completely clear to us. At least it is that they provided an air corridor to the Zionist Air Force, as well as the defense equipment that had been sent before for, in a way, participation in this operation.
So is West Asia looking at a massive escalation right now? Will Iran strike back or will Iran pipe down? Because do keep in mind, there are those who say Iran today is extremely vulnerable with its air defenses completely decimated. The S-300 systems that protect Tehran were unable to protect Tehran and other strategic military locations. That's point one. Point two, is there merit in Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant saying both Hamas and Hezbollah are no longer effective proxies for Iran? There is little clarity on the impact of Israeli airstrikes in Iran, but there are some reports on bomb damage assessment. And remember, after any air operation, bomb damage assessment is very crucial to know what target was actually acquired. So let's try and make sense. We are talking to experts with their ear to the ground. Joining me on India First is Dr. Vail Awad. He's a senior journalist and a very well-respected West Asia expert. Also with me is Group Captain MJ Augustine Vinod. He's a former Mirage 2000 fighter pilot. He's a drone expert and he's someone who's watching West Asia crisis very closely. And Group Captain Vinod, I want to understand from you. If 100 plus fighter jets flew in 3 waves, bombed Iran and returned, though of course there's very little information, at least in public domain, on the impact on ground, does the fact that they were able to fly, bomb and return unharmed indicate total air dominance that Israel has, and does it also indicate how vulnerable Iran may actually be?
Wonderful question, Gaurav, and as usual you got the nail on the head, because the first operation in any air operation is air defense. I mean, counter-air operations in which you take out the air defense weapons. In this case, in the modern times, except probably when, US ran over Iraq, in the modern times, Gaurav, we have not seen an air operation against a country in which, such magnitude of aeroplanes entered and didn't get hit and come back. It's very, very rare to see, which rightly put by you. They've conducted some kind of SIAD, DIAD operations in the prelude of these 100 aircraft strike. So the front portion of this 100 aircraft strike has been, the jammers, electronic warfare jammers, carrying out SIAD operations. Then you had other aircraft carrying out the DIAD operations, destruction of enemy air defense operations, which includes the front-tier missiles and the radars. So they first, jammed them with electronic energy. Then they blinded them with taking out all these important elements of air defense, including the air defense communication network. And the rest of the 70, 80 aircraft had kind of a field day Turkey shoot over Iraq, which is a classical, extremely well executed air operation. Now,
Okay.
will they be able to build on top of this? That's a question that remains to be answered, Gaurav.
And for the benefit of viewers, I know in India First, most of our viewers know what SIAD and DIAD means. SIAD is suppression of enemy air defenses, and DIAD, as Group Captain Augustine Vinod very rightly pointed out, is destruction of enemy air defenses. Enemy in this case for Israel being Iran. Dr. Wael Awad, what should one make of Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Commander Hussein Salami warning Israel of bitter consequences? Sir, does this indicate that there will be escalation if Iran fired around 300 drones and missiles in April and 181 on the 1st of October? This time, as Iran has warned that they have 1,000 ballistic missiles ready to bomb Israel, is that on the cards, sir?
Absolutely on the cards, Saurabh. I think if we look at the chronology of the event taking place, ever since Israel started sabotaging with the CIA against Iran, ever since the Iranian Revolution has come, in fact, 1979. So we know that the covert operation has been carried out for long years. But having said that, I would say for the last year or so, we have seen lots of loss of the scientists. We have seen lots of attacking of installation in Iran, jamming of by cyber attacking also their nuclear site. All these have been taking place, provocative measure, till the killing of Ismail Haniyeh done in his site in Tehran. And that was a natural, or it is a normal retaliation of the attack of a sovereign nation. That's what the Article 4 of the United Nations Charter says, that if you are subjected to any kind of an attack, you have the right to respond. So when Iran responded to the killing of their official in the consulate in Damascus, they on April, then second attack was after July with the two killing of Hamas and Ismail Haniyeh inside Tehran, and also the killing of Hassan Nasrallah in Beirut. That was made the Iranian retaliate. Now Israel, according to US and the West, have the right to retaliate. But on what basis? That's how they read the UN Charter, and this is the hypocrisy. Now, if Iran retaliate, it's a full right to do so. So I think the Iranians are measuring and taking a well-calculated messages this time, because last time they were already taken for a ride when the United States sent some of the official insight that we are not going to don't retaliate. We are trying to reach negotiate a ceasefire in Gaza Strip. And I think that assurance is given. Then we saw the loss of Hassan Nasrallah and the attack on Lebanon. Now I think it may be an escalation, and don't take the Israeli lightly, the attack on it. And I think they are already preparing, because we know that US, Germany, France, and UK already on the ground.
That's very interesting. You should say that. Absolutely. Whether you talk about Mediterranean Sea and a US Navy aircraft carrier strike group or other navies that are joining in, or the third air defense missile shield, terminal high altitude air defense missile shield with 100 US personnel already in Israel. But Group Captain Vinod, you, apart from public, information that's there in public domain, you've been talking to a lot of open source intelligence people and also other networks. Sir, any details of bomb damage assessment on ground? Reports from Israel seem to indicate that Iran's entire S-300 missile defense shield, and S-300 is, as you know better, extremely potent. They've been destroyed, all of them that were around not just Tehran, but in the western part of the country.
Absolutely. In fact, that really shocked me a little, Gaurav, because the S-300 procurement moved from my table when I was still in uniform. And I know for a fact that it is an extremely potent weapon. But let me also give you a small example. I mean, I take a leaf from Dr. Wael Awad's, talk about the other members of the NATO, as well as, people who are in support with Israel being involved in this entire gamut of how this attack has happened. So when they are involved, and also some inimical and well-entrenched forces involved inside Iran, Iran's ploy of no information to come out hasn't worked well. The BDA, the social media BDA, let me put it that way, has been much more effective than the BDA probably conducted by even Israelis, because when they bombed, I was very close to that place, right close to Basra when this bombing was happening. It was cloudy, it was raining, in fact. In fact, the entire that region rained. Meena Watcher, Dr. Awad will bear me out on this. And that is when I left that place. So being on the ground, I'm telling you this. Their BDA, that is Israeli BDA, may not have been effective as much as the social media BDA, which we are seeing, some of it we are seeing on the screen. You're right. S-300 has been taken out. I feel the deployment of S-300 itself is an art, because S-300 is a distributed system. You can have the radar elsewhere, the missile elsewhere, and the command and control system elsewhere. You can connect it with data link, OFC. So taking out an S-300 system, if you deploy it well and if you used your brain, it is, Gaurav, is next to impossible. If Israelis have done it, that means there has been a glaring tactical or an operational error in deployment of this S-300. That is the long and short of what I can, say what happened. Now, that led to another, and that is what we are seeing on the screen, and see the amount of damage that has happened. And they have to pay for it in times to come. Over to you, Gaurav.
That's a big point. They may have to pay for it in times to come, because next time if there's an attack, how vulnerable will Iran be with its eyes gone and with its counter-strike capability diminished? Dr. Awad, Israel's defense minister Yoav Gallant says Hamas and Hezbollah are both no longer effective proxies for Iran. Now, is that an indication if for the past 1 year Hamas has been targeted, the entire command and control system of Hezbollah have been targeted, and now Iran has directly been targeted, does that make Iran vulnerable, sir?
Absolutely not. I don't think, let us come out from the notions of the Iranian that we call Hamas and Hezbollah are the proxies of Iran. In fact, we call also US, Israel is the proxy of US, if that is the way we should see it. I think they are allies. Until now, Hamas and Hezbollah are fighting their own war. They have not taken the leads of the Iranian attack. And I think there are still secretive missiles will be used in the future if Iran has been attacked by the NATO member. So I don't see, at the moment, we just call them an ally, because the fight, Gaurav, as you know, it's not on the issues of Hamas, because Hamas is not the problem. It's the 2.5 million Palestinians who are suffering in Gaza Strip, who have been slaughtered, who has been killed in front of the eyes. I mean, even the International Court of Justice have said that this is a criminal act. This is a genocide. So how long it can go on? That is what the objective of the Israeli government, which is not declared. And similarly, in Hezbollah and in Lebanon, most of the Shia villages are in the south of Lebanon. And that is where the Hezbollah has been involved ever since its creation, after Israel invaded Lebanon and occupied 1982 Beirut. So I think what we should see here is that there is an ambition of a prime minister of Israel called Benjamin Netanyahu, who was originally from Poland, wanted to expand this war so he avoid being taken on a trial next December, and also avoid, because he's gaining popularity. The more he goes into the war and attacks leaders.
All of this started, sir, I may take your point, but all of it started after the October 7 Hamas terror attack on Israel that killed 1,200 people. Before that, this hadn't started. That's my limited point to the points you're raising. Then again, the Hezbollah strike on Israel started on the 8th of October, which is what led to a strike back. That's my limited point on the point that you're making about Benjamin Netanyahu wanting to expand this war. But Group Captain Vinod, if air defense, if Iran's majority of its air defenses, and I will not say all, even though there were 3 waves of airstrikes and Siad and Diad happened, I want to understand, does that mean if Iran responds, and Iran will now have to think, if it responds, if it escalates, which means Israel will escalate once again, and Iran will then be more vulnerable than it was in the first attack, and next time it's not just its military targets, the oil infrastructure and the nuclear targets could be next.
Absolutely, and both this news is not good for India, because we are friends with both. One for energy security, and other for the technology and other things that we have friendship with. And we are a neutral observer, and with that as the background, I am completely with Dr. Awad on this, because see, Hammurabi said, an eye for an eye. with that yardstick, Gaurav, for 1,400 people, it should have stopped at 1,400 people and not 40,000. So, to that limited extent, I am absolutely in agreement with what Dr. Awad said. And so the point that you're making, Gaurav, has much larger operational and strategic implication for two reasons. A, uh, the advisors of Khamenei should not advise him grandeur plans because they have to see what they have lost on the ground. Secondly, they have to, we in the Forge we call it, net assessment. They have to net assess if this happens, what is the future outcome going to be, and if this happens. So you'll have to have certain happening, benchmarks at which you will measure what your future, your country's future is going to be. And that has to be done dispassionately. We do it in Forge very, very dispassionately,
Yes.
in Indian Forge, very dispassionately. We do it. They have to do it dispassionately. And with that as the
And they need
background,
to
I'm done.
cut their losses if that is what needs to be done on either side. And Dr. Vailawat, the last 30 seconds I have on this part of the show, Israel struck not just Iran, but air defenses in Syria and Iraq and flew over multiple countries in the region. Sir, that's the question I want to come to. While Iran may blame an air corridor, but does that indicate there are countries in the region, irrespective of religion, they are not with Iran?
Absolutely not. These are occupied by the Americans. In fact, they're occupying north and eastern of Syria. They're stealing the oil and they're protecting ISIS there. And Daesh, in fact, we have more than 55,000 terrorists are still under the American umbrella. So I think they have already have control over the sky of Iraq. And that's why Iraq submitted a complaint to the United Nations because of violating their airspace by Israel and even by the United States. I think the most important point here, Gaurav, I must mention here is that we only remember the 7th of October after the Israeli being killed. But if we look at 75 years of killing of the Palestinians, I think we'll be justifying what's going on is a genocide. And we're looking for justice. Everybody in the Arab world, all the stakeholders asking for two-state solution. Even they told the American and the West, and they told Iran and Israel, we do not want it to have a war. Look at the region, who has only wanted the war. And I think that is the message. The international community has to step in to stop this genocide, to stop this war, and let us have a peaceful discussion. Because in the absence of a comprehensive political framework to a solution, the war cannot be the only solution.
That's very interesting. You should point that. And that brings us to the point that will there be compromise now? Are either side or both sides now willing to talk, negotiate, and find a peaceful road ahead? Group Captain Vinod and Dr. Vailawat for joining me here on India Today. As always, many thanks. We'll be tracking the story very closely. But I want to leave our viewers on a happier note. And what's that happier note? Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Spanish counterpart, Pedro Sanchez of Spain, on Monday inaugurated India's first private military transport aircraft production unit in Gujarat's Vadodara. The first private factory from which plans are ready now to touch the sky with glory. From enhancing India's defense capabilities to creating thousands and thousands of jobs to positioning India not as a buyer, but a major manufacturer and exporter of military transport aircraft, the Tata Airbus C295 project is truly a game changer. Shivarur gets us more in this report.
A milestone for Make in India in defense and aerospace. A flagship beacon for the future of defense production in India. And the country's first private sector facility building aircraft for the military. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his visiting Spanish counterpart presided over the inauguration of the final assembly line of the Made in India Airbus C295 military transport aircraft, a joint venture between Tata and the European aerospace giant. Under this contract, while Airbus will deliver 16 fully built aircraft from its Spanish facility, the remaining 40 will be built here in Vadodara, with full aircraft rolling out of this line inaugurated by the leaders of the two countries.
हम भारत और स्पेन की पार्टनरशिप को नई दिशा दे रहे हैं. हम C-295 ट्रांसपोर्ट एयरक्राफ्ट के प्रोडक्शन की फैक्ट्री का शुभारंभ कर रहे हैं। आज अक्टूबर महीने में ही ये फैक्ट्री अब एयरक्राफ्ट के प्रोडक्शन के लिए तैयार है।
In 2026, the first C-295 manufactured in India will produce by this plant in Vadodara. This aircraft, it is a symbol of the Spanish and European aeronautical industry. In addition to contributing to modernizing India's defense capabilities, it will also drive technological development, particularly for the state of Gujarat, India's leading manufacturing hub.
Providing a major boost to Atmanirbhar Bharat, the inauguration comes 3 years after the Indian Air Force signed up for the C-295 to replace legacy British Avro transport aircraft in service.
Inaugural landing of the Indian Air Force aircraft C-295.
Of the 16 to be delivered from Spain, 6 have already been delivered to the Indian Air Force. A C-295 recently made a debut landing in public at the new airport in Navi Mumbai as well. In service with 36 countries and their militaries, the C-295 is a versatile tactical transport aircraft capable of rapid operations and can carry 73 fully armed troops of 48 Special Forces paratroopers. It can be converted for all manner of operations, including medical evacuation, humanitarian relief operations, surveillance missions, and even low-altitude delivery in hostile airspace. The inauguration in Vadodara comes days after the demise of Ratan Tata, under whose leadership the Tata Group's foray into defense took place.
It is a historic moment not only for the Tata Group, but also for India, and this project embraces the true Atmanirbhar vision of our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji. Made in India aircraft, where the aircraft parts manufacturing as well as the full assembly of the aircraft and the integration is being done for the first time in India by private sector.
The Make in India C-295 program has become an industrial benchmark, which is aligned to the Prime Minister Modi's vision of self-reliance or Atmanirbhar Bharat. With the C-295 program, not only Tata and Airbus will assemble 40 aircraft here in this state-of-the-art final assembly in Vadodara, but we will also manufacture all sections and 13,000 of the total of 14,000 detailed parts of the aircraft here in India.
The first made-in-India C-295 will roll out of the Vadodara facility in September 2026, and production here will ramp up to deliver 40 aircraft to the Indian Air Force by August 2031. India has become the largest customer for the C-295, with the acquisition of 56 aircraft in total. The C-295 Make in India program will produce more than 85% structural and final assembly of 40 aircraft, along with the manufacturing of 13,000 detailed parts in India, for which 21 special processes have been certified and 37 India-based suppliers, both from the private and public sectors, have been enlisted. This means a huge number of aerospace manufacturing jobs and high skill set employment. Beyond the 56 aircraft for the Indian Air Force, the facility is certain to receive orders from the Indian Navy and internal security agencies, in addition to civil aviation carriers. With Brajesh Doshi in Vadodara, Gujarat, Bureau Report, India Today.